Hello everyone, and welcome to the Painting Paladin. My name is Justin, and today's video is a special one. It's the 1 year anniversary of my channel, and I am happy to celebrate it with all of you watching and supporting the channel. Now normally, I save this bit for the end of the video, but if you're new here and you like what you see, hit that like and subscribe button. As for the rest of you who are already subscribed, thank you for your continued support. Now, in honor of it being the 1 year anniversary of the channel, I wanted to work on a bigger model. When I first painted up the Hulk and Ghost Spider models, I was really happy to find out that they were plastic models and not resin or pewter. So when I looked at more of their line, there was one model that stood out from the rest, and that was the Quin Jet. Now this monstrous model has a wingspan of almost 16 inches wide and roughly about 13 inches long. So after assembling this big model, which was just fun to build, it was ready for paint. Now, unlike a lot of other model makers out there, I don't use an airbrush, mainly because I'm not any good with it. So I'll be painting this model by hand. So with all that being said, let's get to work on this Quin Jet, shall we? Alright, now before we begin, I undercoated this model with Mechanicus Standard Gray. Now the first color that we're going to be using is Eshin Gray, and we're going to paint this over the entire body of the jet. Now make sure to add a little bit of water to your paint so it flows smooth and it won't leave any brush streaks. Alright, now that we got that gray done, we can move on to the next step. Now this next step is going to be a little bit tedious, but just bear with it. Now the color we're going to be using is the wash Null and Oil, and we're going to be doing recess shading in all of those lines and crevices on the entire jet. So just take your time and work your way around the model. Alright, now that we got that recess shading done, we can move on to our next step. Now the next color I'm going to be using is Thousand Suns Blue, and we're going to use this to paint the windows. Moving on, the next color that we're going to be using is Airman Blue. Now we're going to use this on the windows as well, but this time we're not going to paint it all the way to the edges. We're going to paint it about 3/4 of the way down. Alright, so the next color that we're going to be using is Baharoth Blue. Now this color, we're only going to be painting it about halfway down. And finally, to finish these windows up, we're going to be using the color Ulthuan Gray. Now we're going to paint this a thin streak down the middle on the upper windows, and on the side windows, we're going to paint it towards the top. Now we're also going to use this color to paint the two tail lights that are on the upper tail fins of the jet. Okay, so now that the windows are done, the next color that we're going to be using is Mephiston Red, and we're going to be using this to paint the port side light. Alright, with the port side light painted, we can move on to the starboard side light. Now the color we're using for this is Caliban Green. Alright, now that we got those lights painted up and FAA compliant, we can move on to our next step. Now the next color that we're going to be using is Lead Belcher. We're going to be using this to paint the intake valves, the engines, as well as the engine compartments, and the hydraulics. Alright, now that that's done, we can move on to our next step. Now the next color that we're going to be using is a Baden Black. Now as you can see, I laid down a soft mat so I wouldn't scratch the paint on the upper side of the plane, but we're going to use this color to paint the tires as well as that cord that's on the front hydraulic. Alright, now that that's done, we can move on to our next color. Now the next color that we're going to be using is Nuln Oil, but this time we're going to be applying it as an all-over wash on all of the Lead Belcher and a Baden Black. Okay, so with that done, we're done working on the jet and we can move on to the next thing, and that's going to be the base. Now, just like before, I undercoated this model with Mechanicus Standard Gray. Now the first color that we're going to be using is Dawnstone, and we're going to paint this all over the concrete. Alright, so with that Dawnstone done, we can move on to our next color. Now the next color we're going to be using is Lead Belcher, and we're going to be using this to paint that manhole cover, the steel I-beam that's in the middle there, the pieces of rebar that are sticking out, and the hubcap for that tire. Okay, so with that done, the next color that we're going to be using is a Painting Black, and we're just going to use this to paint that tire. Moving on, the next color that we're going to be using is the Apple Barrel Paint Nutmeg. Now I watered this down quite heavily so it flows really smoothly, and we're going to use this to paint all of that dirt that got tossed up in the middle there, as well as around the edge of the base. Now you're probably going to want to use 2 coats around the edge to make it a little bit darker. And the last step to this base is we're going to be applying the color Agrax Earthshade as an all-over wash. Now just like what we did before with the other 2 Marvel characters, after we apply it, we're going to use a tissue and wipe it up and smudge it up so that it looks patchy and uneven. Okay, so now that the base is all painted up, the last step that we need to do is just adhere the Quin Jet to the base itself. Now you can see I'm using some super glue here, and they have tire indentations on where the Quin Jet is actually going to sit. So just add some drops of super glue there and gently set your jet in those tire tread marks. Okay, so with the model all glued down, this model is finished and ready to take to the battlefields. Alright, with this Quin Jet all painted up, it is ready to be deployed to any battlefield. Now a few things to remember when painting this. The first is, when painting large flat surfaces, make sure to add a few drops of water to your paint so it flows smooth. You might need to paint a few coats in some areas, but you shouldn't get any brush streaks. Another thing is, when doing the recess shading, it's going to take a lot of time and it's going to suck doing it, but the end result is well worth it. So just be patient and keep at it until you've finished, and you will agree it makes a huge difference. Now I said this at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to say it again. If you're new here and you like what you see, smack that like and subscribe button now so you can stay up to date with future videos. Now it's a new year and I'm starting to get the hang of this channel thing, so I'm going to start introducing some additional content to the channel other than just the painting tutorials. I still plan on giving you videos on 3D models as well as working away at my pile of shame, but I also wanted to include some other videos that you might enjoy or find useful. So I plan on adding some gameplay videos and terrain videos that will add some variety to the channel. Also, one more thing and note to mention, in my pile of shame, I have a model that has been collecting dust for some time and I really want to do a video on that. However, I am going to continue to put it off until the channel hopefully reaches 1,000 subscribers and work on that model as a special. Now, it might not happen today, tomorrow, or even a year from now, but I have set myself that goal and I want all of your help to reach it. So make sure to tell all your friends about the channel and help spread the word. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, here's everyone at the Painting Paladin wishing you all a happy new year and hope that this year is better than last year. Thanks, everyone.